you want me to close the door behind me? Are we ready to go? Mark, can you hear me? Oh, that was actually kind of loud. Wow. Alrighty, good evening. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Am I too loud? No, I'm good? Okay. Alright, well, appreciate everyone coming in tonight. Tonight we are here to talk about the potential project in 2025, our street and utility reconstruction. We'll just go that way, yeah. So right now on our preliminary schedule, we are at the neighborhood informational meeting, May 29th. Kind of a little background here. SEH was authorized to do a feasibility study back in November of 2023. That feasibility study was accepted by the City of Foley Council on April 2nd, and so tonight that leads us to our neighborhood informational meeting, which is in front of our improvement hearing on June 4th. So at that hearing is when the city can decide to essentially move forward with the designing of the project, order the improvements of the project. There is more points along the schedule where the city can decide to move forward or not move forward with the project. Those being essentially, the last one would be awarding the project sometime in March of 2025. That would be kind of the last spot on the train track there. So, so a little bit of a project here. So what our project consists, I should carry this. What our project consists of is reconstructing 3rd Avenue from John Street to Murphy, just south of 23 on 4th Avenue up to the Norman intersection, from the 23 intersection to Penn Street for Broadway Avenue, and then the side streets of Murphy Street and Parent Street. This project actually was originally part of the 2011 capital improvement plan for the City of Foley. It's located up there in the purple. It obviously was not reconstructed in 2011, and it's been, due to different various reasons, is now on the CIP for 2025. It also was on the CIP for 2020, I believe, as well, but again, for various reasons, it was pushed to currently being in 2025. The purpose and need of this project is to improve deteriorating streets and utility infrastructure underneath the road. Mark, I'm going to call on you. As far as replacing sanitary and water main underneath 4th Avenue and Broadway, have we done patches, I would say, 1 or 2 a year for the last 5 years?
We had a sewer main collapse last November on 4th, and we had, 4 water leaks on 4th.
Okay. So further to the point there, that the utility, the infrastructure that we have as a city is in dire need there. Also, we'll be improving the drainage in the area. Most of this area does not have storm kind of running through it, and so to improve the drainage throughout that corridor of the city, we will be adding storm sewer and also addressing some ADA issues with the sidewalk and ped ramps. Existing conditions here, I'll kind of quickly run through this. Broadway Avenue, 4th Avenue, and 3rd Avenue, I'll kind of lump them all together here. Essentially, those are all 50 to 53 feet wide. Broadway does have some diagonal parking in front of the dentist and also the church on both ends of the avenue there. Sidewalk on both sides for most of them, except for Broadway only on the east side. As I mentioned before, non-compliant pedestrian ramps, and as we mentioned, the original infrastructure is in place underneath all these streets. Cast iron for the water main, and then vitrified clay for the sanitary sewer. And there's some storm sewer under 4th Avenue right now. Parent Street and Murphy Street, the existing footprint, let me jump up here. Let me jump back. So the block on Murphy Street, the block from 3rd to 4th is roughly 50 feet wide. The block from 4th to Broadway is roughly 38 to 40 feet wide. and then Parent is roughly 20 feet wide.
I measured,
Not the case?
I measured it,
What's the width on that?
37.
37? Okay, all right.
What I'm not understanding on your schematic here is you're showing Murphy on the other side of Fourth, the same width as on the east side of Fourth, is what your plan is showing.
Correct,
And it's 14 feet difference.
correct, yep. We're reconstructing it as a uniform street width on both sides of the road.
We'll see.
I mean, does that help with the sewer setup and such, that if you have everything matching?
There's always a benefit to having consistency, but yeah, there's you having a narrowing the width of from on Murphy from 3rd to 4th, having it be 50 feet wide. There isn't really a benefit to that, as other than, you know, if you narrowed it down to 32, there isn't really much of a additional benefit there. So it's just additional cost essentially for that project to be.
No, that's been a big reason for that.
To be 50 feet wide, no.
Or to be narrower.
Or to be narrow? Well, the narrow would be just the cost of it. You know, that would improve. That would be cheaper to do that versus constructing it back at 55 or 50 feet wide. And then the alleyways. We are reconstructing the alleys from Murphy to Penn as well. Those existing conditions are 10 feet wide with no curb, no sanitary water, and storm in those areas. This is a picture, I believe, of 3rd Avenue, kind of showing the deterioration in the pavement. And this is the intersection of Murphy and 4th, showing the ped ramps and how they are not ADA compliant, and 2, also then showing, if you can tell, that there's a whole lot of dirt in this intersection right through here, and not really the best for our storm system, taking on all that sediment there. So we'll be improving the drainage in the area. Our proposed improvements for this project. Essentially, Broadway and 3rd Avenue, I'll lump them together. Reconstructing those avenues at a 42-foot wide road from face to face of the curb, and then also we'll keep the existing parking intact there, as far as making sure we still have that diagonal parking in front of the dentist and the church. And then replacing sidewalk on the east side of Broadway, and then both sides of 3rd Avenue. 4th Avenue is for most of you know, is a county road, County Road 43. That is currently being proposed to be reconstructed back to its existing footprint of 50 feet wide with curb and gutter, and then replacing sidewalk on both sides. Parent Street and Murphy Street, we're reconstructing all 3 blocks of those 2 streets to a 32-foot wide with curb and gutter, and sidewalk on the north sides of both of those streets. As I mentioned, the alley before was 10 feet wide. We're proposing to put that back to the city standard of 12 feet wide, no curb and gutter. And these are our typical sections for our 3 kind of clusters of roads that we talked about. This is 3rd Avenue and Broadway, showing the 42-foot wide from face to curb, and then having a boulevard with sidewalk on both sides. The west side is only on 3rd Avenue because Broadway just has the one on the east side of the road. The same goes for 4th Avenue, essentially the same section, just a wider road. This one is proposed to be at the existing footprint of 50 feet wide. Parent and Murphy Street, as we mentioned before here, showing that those streets will be reconstructed to 32 feet wide with sidewalk on the north side and a boulevard in between. And the alley constructed to a 12-foot width.
Why is the alley not getting reconstructed from Murphy down to Highway 23?
Because, quite frankly, it wasn't part of our CIP, and it is in better condition than the other 2.
Condition? Not really.
Not condition?
Condition.
No? Okay. Mark?
That was reconstructed in '93.
Yeah, okay.
So it was more of a mill and overlay on that one, more of a maintenance.
They never built it, Mark. They had leftover mix that night, and they run the pavement down the alley. That's why my driveway, I had a fork with a slope so the water didn't run in my garage.
I thought you were south of there, south of Murphy.
We're north of
They
it.
did,
Yeah, they're doing that block.
yeah,
Yeah,
they did.
they never milled nothing, they smeared it on there and then
They just
in the
let it
spring, all the
overrun.
water ran in my garage.
I thought you were talking the block south of Murphy, I'm sorry.
That's not being reconstructed.
Right, that was in 93.
How's your alley, Gene?
Shitty. And your
Pretty bad.
all catches by 23 there. And then you tore up a whole bunch of tar where it eased up by our driveway, or right north of our driveway.
Okay.
Is there a separate meeting to, talk about and contest these plans, or is this it?
So tonight, we are gonna go through the scope of the feasibility study, and talk about assessments. And then there's a public hearing at the council on June 4th, where you can bring your concerns to the council at that time. And then later on, if the project continues to move forward, we'll have a meeting similar to this, at probably 30% plans, that we can take on these questions you have as far as like you mentioned, we talked about your drainage concerns in the alley.
There's a lot of people here concerned about the cost and, affected at their homes, you know. Some people are gonna lose access to their driveways because of the sidewalk.
No access
Through
with,
their driveway. You can't park on a sidewalk.
Yep.
It's going right through their driveway.
right.
On Murphy Street.
Are you saying there's not room between the sidewalk and your garage to park a stuff? Is that what you're getting at?
And they got room now, they can have a car outside of the garage,
Hmm.
but you put a sidewalk there and now they don't have any driveway.
Okay.
And I'm concerned about my property too. Why put a sidewalk across a short side street that doesn't really benefit anybody?
That's what I'd like to know.
It benefits the public as a whole as far as connectivity.
There is no heavy duty traffic in
Yep.
that area, there's 2 houses that have driveways on that
Right.
street. And
Yep.
there's no traffic, so why put a sidewalk?
Correct. Yeah. Like I said, it benefits the community as a whole versus the people
not.
on that street.
It does not.
It-
It benefits nobody and inconveniences the homeowners on that street.
Okay.
We're the ones paying for this project.
Yep.
Why are you people not listening? I don't understand why you can't listen to the people that are paying for the project.
And sir, that's what we're trying to do tonight. Take on your comments.
You know what my assessment is. You think I should be paying for something I don't want? It's yes or no question.
I think there's a special benefit. That's what your assessment's for the project. As a project as a whole is the special benefit to you. The sidewalk.
There's 4 houses on our block.
Correct. Yep, I'm aware. But to my point, as far as having those sidewalks provide connectivity for the public as a whole.
Yeah, you're going in circles, buddy.
Yep.
What do you mean, yeah?
Yep, as in that's the answer that we provide for that question. And you know,
I
as
don't know, I
there
think
is.
Foley per capita, the taxes are extremely high in Foley per capita. And you look what I'm gonna be assessed every year on top of that?
And he's right, our houses are overvalued, you guys put our house prices at $50,000 more than what they're really valued. Their taxes are extremely high.
To that point, I guess, Sarah, the values on those sheets, those are pulled from the county, correct?
There's not values on those sheets.
Oh, there isn't?
Just their assessment amount.
Right.
Okay,
No,
okay.
I'm talking my yearly tax assessment for my house value.
Oh, okay.
If you wanna buy my house for that, come and buy it, cause I'll let you have it for that, cause it ain't worth that.
Yeah, and to you guys' point, the proposed project isn't set in stone. That's why we're here tonight. If there's a big need from the city to have a sidewalk on one spot but not on another side, or a wider road somewhere, or a narrow road somewhere, that's what we're here to take that information right now from.
I measured the road out there.
Yep.
And if you're gonna put in what you proposed at, you are not allowing for parking on the street. I measured it out and I gave you guys the benefit of the doubt for 7 feet per car on each side.
Mhm.
That does not leave it wide enough for a fire truck to go through.
The 30.
So I can understand curb and gutter.
Yep.
I understand that. But the rest of your hoopla, I don't have a $500,000 house. There's 4 people on the block.
Okay.
You walk out of your house and you're to a sidewalk. I don't know why you need a sidewalk and a boulevard. I don't
Mhm.
know who's spending this money. Who's spending the taxpayers' money?
Okay.
Who's doing it? Can I have an answer? No answers?
Again, I guess to the point of that, if we're going to keep talking about sidewalk, I guess the point is that it provides the benefit to the public as a whole. Connectivity. People over on Third can now walk to the dentist without having to walk up to the pen or walk down across the highway. They can just take that right down there. So there's a benefit that way.
They park in front of the dentist office. They don't walk down Murphy.
Okay. If there's a sidewalk there, they may, right?
Oh,
Um,
oh my.
But
It's a low traffic street, it's same as my block.
Okay.
Low traffic, there's nobody, they can walk down the side of the street and people are going 5 miles an hour down the street because their house is 10 feet from the damn, they're not, the whole damn street's not even 100 feet long.
okay.
Excuse me, can I just get your address?
610 4th Avenue,
610 Fourth, okay, thank you.
Parent Street.
I've got a question.
Yep, go ahead.
So on the preliminary schedule,
Whatever.
it's got the bidding is in February 25. So
Don't
can
need
we
a sidewalk on
assume
that street.
that these assessments would go up due to inflation?
So the assessments that you
Actually doing it,
the yeah, okay. So the assessments that you have in front of you are preliminary. They're solely based off of an engineering estimate and the city policy.
So
They
it's quite possible they would go up due to inflation.
quite possibly they could go up or they could go down. Yes, depending on the on the bids that we get for the project. Correct. Yeah.
Okay, can I ask, what is the city policy of what a taxpayer has to pay in front of their house?
So the city assessment policy, I'll get to it later, but to answer your question now, it's essentially 30% of the project goes to is the assessable cost, and that's divided amongst the benefiting properties of the project.
Is there a way for that percentage to go down due to the fact that the traffic that is on Broadway Avenue and the traffic that is on 4th Street has a lot to do with the school, the churches, and everything else that, I mean, there's people going down our road that aren't our people, that
Right.
it's all day long,
Mhm.
there's traffic.
Correct.
And I get that we want to have decent streets for everybody to drive on, but also, why are we getting the blunt of it, to have to pay for it? Like, is there a set percentage that it could go down to?
The reason why there's a 30% in place is because the people that are on the assessment roll have a special benefit to the project because you live there. So you are on it every day. Yes, both those streets have drive to the high school, drive to school, drive to churches, drive to the dentist's office. There's a lot of traffic on those roads, and that's why there's only 30%, not 100% of the project, right? But to your question about 30%, that is the city policy. Could it go down? Could it go up? That's up to your council and city staff to determine. But as of right now, for benefiting for running through our feasibility study, it's assumed that they will keep it at 30%, according to the policy.
Is there a state amount that has to, like, I guess that's a city policy, but is there a state amount that says, our state says that taxpayers have to pay this amount?
So there's the statute 429 in the state of Minnesota that allows the cities to assess for projects, special assessment to the benefiting properties of that project. They can only assess up to the benefit value, the increased value of that property. Does that make sense?
I can add.
Yep.
We have to do a minimum of 20% per state law, and that is in order for us to issue bonds.
Correct.
Follow the 429 statute. So it could be no lower than 20%, and that's just to follow state law. The city has had in place 30% for quite some time now, and so a number of projects before this project have been assessed at that 30% rate. But it is up to the city council to ultimately decide that rate.
I mean, just due with all the other traffic that goes on those roads, you see, if you're going in a new development, you don't have school traffic, or if you don't, if you go on a different road, you don't have the school traffic, you don't have the church traffic, you don't have a lot of the extra. It's different if you're downtown Foley, or you're, if you're going to somewhere specifically, like the kids.
Mhm.
The
Correct, yep. I completely agree, and I see your point. Past projects have been assessed, the policy is 30%. Even the projects that we did in 2018, most of those streets, you know, are in the, almost near the downtown corridor. Those residents were assessed at 30% for those streets as well. Getting over then to the subsurface work of the project, these improvements, we will be replacing the sanitary sewer, or sorry, the storm sewer throughout the project. Most of that is undersized on 4th Avenue as they get across the highway and kick out into the creek here. So we'll be replacing that and extending also storm sewer up Broadway, and then getting that to certain areas in the alleyway. As we mentioned, there were some drainage issues in the alley that we are going to attempt to correct with this project. Sanitary sewer, most of it will be open trench PVC replacement in your throughout the project. There are stretches underneath to get underneath the highway that will need the jack and bore underneath 4th Avenue. Residential services are 4 inches and commercial services are proposed to be 6. The water main will also be open trenched, and that we will be replacing the existing cast iron with ductile iron. And then there are 2 locations where we'll need the jack and bore underneath the highway, at 4th Avenue and at 3rd Avenue. And the residential services are 1 inch, and then commercial are 1.5.
I'm trying to
Yep.
figure out, you're talking about the places, the pipes that have been replaced recently?
Yep.
So was that all sewer that collapsed, or what, I mean, what
So,
kind of pipes was it?
yeah, Mark had mentioned that I believe you said on 4th Avenue, there was a sanitary sewer replacement where the pipe had collapsed. That clay pipe had collapsed, and so they needed to patch that. And then there were leaks in the main throughout the project area.
How does that show up?
How's that? Sorry?
How does that actually show up? I mean, how does that show up? People start having sewer issues and?
Correct, yep.
Okay, I'm just wondering because I had a leak underneath my house, they tell me, for 2 years probably.
Okay.
And they knew there was water coming, but they didn't know where it was coming from.
Leak in your water service or your sanitary service?
My regular water
Okay.
before it went to the meter.
Okay.
But my place was so soggy that my floor in my basement heaved up. When they went out there to dig everything up, everything was waterlogged. I mean, you put the thing down and I had like a lake underneath my house.
Okay.
I mean, and it's done a lot of damage to my house.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why, if there's water there, they can't tell where any of it's coming from, or?
There are ways to determine, usually by, that's a technique of sound. They kind of hook up to the hydrants and they kind of use sound waves to determine where those leaks are. But to your point, as far as having leaks in your water service, we will be, potentially with this project, we're currently working through kind of getting grant funds to replace the galvanized water services throughout the project area, from the meter in the home to the main. So I'm not sure if yours was replaced, and now you.
I had water coming up in the front of my house. I had a pipe and I got water spouting out right
Mm.
to the,
Right.
in the yard there type thing.
Okay. What's your address, by the way?
301 Murphy Street.
Okay.
I kinda had something like what she's talking about, when I had a pipe in one of my back rooms that was an old sewer pipe, and when they were doing the stuff with the smoke or whatever, checking the sewer.
Yep.
And,
The I-9 study?
I come over there and the guy from Public Works, and I showed him that pipe. I said, hey, can I, cement this or something? Cause one time there was water coming through here. And he's like, oh, I wouldn't do that. So then the next year, then water came in and flooded my whole basement out. And then when I asked him about it, he's like, well, I don't know what to tell you what that pipe's for. And, and I'm trying to look in the books and there's nothing here saying anything, but there's a pipe that comes in there, in that room, and water every now and then would come through there, but I cemented that. And I was like, well, he doesn't care, so.
So the existing pipe was open to your, yeah, so it probably wouldn't have been water, but I would
It was like some from sewer,
Yeah.
to like the yard. And
Yep,
I didn't know
okay.
anything about it, so it's like just some pipe coming through there, and I don't know what's at the other end. So when
Okay.
it rained, obviously, we got the sub pump or whatever.
Yep.
Go right through there, so all that water, the sub pump, there's no sub pump in that area, so all that just came in there and flooded my whole basement out.
Okay.
That's happened twice now.
Twice?
Because the first time he told me, don't cement it, a little bit came in, and I'm like, all right, well, maybe he'll tell me something, and took a while to get back to me, and then finally I just said, you know what, the second time, I gotta cement this, because I'm not gonna deal with this every time. Right now, if I would've done it, my basement would probably be flooded right now again.
Okay. And you're saying that it's coming from an opening or a yard drain essentially?
There was a pipe that was in my wall in the basement.
Yep.
It was just, what do you call it, steel pipe, or what do you call The old kind.
Old steel, probably, okay.
Galvanized.
Yeah.
Is it galvanized or,
Yeah,
or,
it was like just like a hole right through the wall.
okay,
Once in a while, you'd see like bugs crawling through there, coming in there.
okay.
But I don't know what's at the other end. He's like, well, maybe we can figure something out, check something out.
But you have capped it since then, you said? Okay,
Cemented it.
Okay.
Because then there was another pipe that was coming in. It looked like it was coming from the ground, then went back into the ground. And then that's when they said, hey, if you notice any smoke, call us.
Mhm.
Well, that thing was cracked and there was smoke coming out. So I'm like, can I cement this? And he was like, go ahead, because you could smell it.
Right,
And then that's when I asked about that one in the wall.
okay. Okay. Mark, I think we should look into that as far as when we get in design here, if we move forward with the project.
House is private,
Correct.
for that, so we
Yep.
will not give advice on.
But if it's, right, okay,
Is that
That'd be a
the way,
plumber.
like, I didn't take, you say something about taking the cap off? Oh, is it? Maybe inside the house is private. Yeah, I thought you said something about like, I took the cap
It's
off.
not city responsibility.
just more curious on where it's coming from, I guess if it's coming from a yard drain,
We have to hire a camera.
right. Ways to investigate that for sure. And these are just figures kind of showing those layouts, as we talked about, replacing the storm on 4th, and then extending storm on Broadway up, and then connecting over to pick up some drainage in the alleys.
So you said it's gonna be open trench?
Open trench, correct.
Or stuff?
I mean, that's what we're assuming currently, yes.
Are they gonna be doing Broadway and Fourth Avenue and Oley Street at the same time? Because I live right on Murphy.
Right.
Murphy Street, so how do you propose, where do I park, how am I getting in my driveway?
Great question. Yeah, that's, during construction, the contractor needs to make sure you have access to your home, as far as there is going to be a short period of time where they're, obviously digging a hole in front of your driveway, putting a storm sewer in there, right, or the water or sanitary, depending on what it is. But it'd be a short period of time. There should be, most of the time, there is good coordination between the homeowners and the contractor, where they give you a heads up, a couple days beforehand, saying, hey, we're going to be doing storm this day. Please park on the side street or park in the alley or something like that. But as far as normal day to day, you should have access to your driveway. Then here's the layout for the proposed sanitary sewer, extending up to on 3rd Avenue, extending up from the highway to Murphy Street, and then this stretch here is a new stretch where we are extending it further up Murphy to provide better connection for those services, and then showing the sanitary all the way up from 4th Avenue, from essentially the creek to Norman Avenue, showing the jack and bore underneath the highway, and then extending sanitary sewer up Broadway as well.
So question.
Yep.
No, I'm just on the other side, I'm on the corner of 3rd and John.
Okay.
So is the sanitary sewer being done on that section?
Here,
Just
down here.
Yep, on that corner.
No, that was
Because now on my assessment, I have a private sanitary service charge.
correct.
only.
So that would relate to the city policy. When a construction project is happening in your area, you'll need to update your private side of the service, so essentially from the right of way to the home.
Hers is
No,
brand-
I
hers
had,
is
no,
brand-
I
Hers is
just
new?
built-
Yep, hers got missed then.
I just
Okay,
built
yep.
my house, so,
Yep, hers is
okay,
brand new.
yeah, so can you check if that should be
Yep,
taken
well,
off?
that was-
Okay.
We maybe missed that.
Okay. All right, good catch, thank you. This is the water main proposed in the project. Essentially the same thing, running all the way up 3rd Avenue, making a loop connection to 4th, and then up 4th and up Broadway as well. This shows the probable cost, preliminary estimated probable cost in our feasibility study for this project. Essentially, the estimated project cost would be, from a city standpoint, 5.1 million. From a county standpoint, they would be paying for the street of 4th Avenue. That'd be 1.4 million, with the total project cost being 6.5. Getting into this preliminary special assessment portion of tonight's presentation, Every property in yellow is shown on our preliminary assessment roll. Not that all of them are being assessed, but they're on the roll because they're in the project area. Here's the part we were talking about earlier, about how our city policy comes into play for special assessments. Surface improvements, so street, sidewalk, everything on the surface, driveways, are all kind of put together, included in the street costs of the project. 30% of those street costs are accessible, and the city pays the remaining 70%. Subsurface, water main and sanitary sewer improvements are also the same way. Those are all calculated together, and 30% of those costs are accessible, and 70% is city cost. Sanitary and water services, those are based on a per lot basis, and 30% of that service cost is assessed to the homeowner, and 70% is the city cost, and that's just from the main in the street to essentially the right of way. Would be that public side of that service. And storm sewer is based off of a drainage area. If your whole property drains to the project, which most of them do because it's largely encompassing the whole project area, those are based on the square footage of the drainage area, and 30% of that is a accessible cost, and 70% is the city cost. The assessment payment term, essentially those terms will be determined at the assessment hearing, which is right now slated to be scheduled for October, November of 2025. The term period that will be determined at that meeting, and right now I think the handouts that Sarah passed out are showing a 15 to 20 year, correct?
Yeah, they're showing an average payment on a 15-year and a 20-year based on the latest estimates we got from our bond council. So that would be your average payment. Higher on the front end because you accrue more interest. You accrue more interest at the beginning, it's per annum. Lower on the back end. How statutory assessments work is you have to fix the payment over the term, and then you charge your annual interest. So your payment will essentially go down as the term goes on. That is your average, to give you an idea of what it looks like. And that would be added on to your property tax bill. So in addition to your city taxes, you would have a special line item that would indicate the project.
So the assessment you got on this sheet, Sarah, that's the initial one? It's gonna start out higher than that?
Yep, so what that is, it starts at, so 15-year was a 4%, 20-year was a 4.25%, and it's charged per annum. That's the statutory requirement, that we charge it per annum based on the resolution that the city certifies. And then every year, so your fee is $20,000, 4%. Then your payment is fixed for each of those years, but your interest that you pay will shrink as the term goes on.
My fee is more than double of $20,000. That's why I'm a little upset on how the money is being spent.
That is, the term is still subject to discussion at the council level, but the interest, that's the interest that we're given right now from our bonding council to finance the project.
So why are we paying the interest, and why are we at 1% above the interest?
Well, the estimates, the reason we do that is because the city still has to pay the bond and the debt service. So we charge you interest because the city is charged interest to finance your benefited portion. So that's why you're charged interest. You're charged above because we sometimes receive prepayments, but the city still has to cover the interest. It's the same reason the city has to charge the taxes even more than we need in case people don't pay, or that we get a prepayment so that we can cover the obligation for the overall city.
Is that fair to the rest of the residents?
That's state law. There's only so much I can do. There are requirements with the 429s, and when we bond and when we issue debt for special improvements, we have to follow a certain set of standards. So those are your estimates. Like I said, it's really up to the city council.
Are we getting a price on what year term we're getting, or is that gonna be discussed?
So we have
At another meeting?
we have historically done 15-year terms because of the
maybe
very
a
important
handful of
feedback.
groceries is $150 and we can't even, how much disposable do you think we got extra coming in each week?
And again, like that's where too, you need to attend the public hearing next Tuesday, provide that feedback to the city council. They ultimately will make that decision on how this project moves forward.
And as I mentioned before, the meeting on next Tuesday, June 4th, is just one more step in the ladder. There are, I think, 2 or 3 more spots along the line where the city could decide not to move forward with the project. Even if they move forward with the project on Tuesday, then they want to wait until they see what kind of bids come in. They can not award the project and
Well, there's no
push
doubt
back.
in my mind that Broadway and Fourth, they're bad. They're bad, but it's this extra stuff that I'm not understanding. You know, that street in front of our house a long time ago was as wide as Penn. And we went through with the city because they wanted to widen it. So they widened it. Now you want to put it back narrow. I'm not understanding that. I need an answer to that, is what I need.
I think to your point there, my understanding, looking through some records with Mark, it was previously about 20 feet wide, and then
As wide as Penn, whoever lives on.
Penn or Parent?
Or Parent.
Okay, yeah, so roughly 20 feet wide.
So we went through everything.
Yep.
The hoops and
And
everything, and
then
got it
in-
widened,
Yep.
and now you wanna go back to narrow.
Narrow,
You gotta
Yep.
go out there and do some measuring, buddy, because I did.
okay.
And your sidewalk and your grass boulevard and all your stuff, it's not gonna be,
It's not going to fit in the right of way, or
it's not gonna fit exactly.
it's not going to fit? There's,
I measured it. You come over and we'll measure it together.
yeah, there's a 66-foot right of way in that corridor.
Oh, I don't think so.
60, so, yep,
No, I don't think so.
yeah.
Well, you better look up your records, because when we went through with that, I know exactly where the property line was, and we
Okay.
had to jump through a bunch of stuff and look it up, that we were grandfathered after the street was in. We were grandfathered more footage, so we didn't open the door and hit a parked car. So if you think you're gonna widen that out to 66 feet,
I think the existing is
I'll have
66.
you'll be in for an argument.
Okay. Yeah, based off of what we're seeing, those parcel maps that are on these figures out here, those are pulled from the county records. They're beacon sites, so,
Well, I don't know what's wrong with curb and gutter on them and Parent Street or whatever that is. Widen it out so that people don't have to park in their yard. We don't need sidewalk, and them guys on Parent, they're getting flooded, that water does not drain. It sits there and it sits in the people's faces.
That's why we would like to do the project.
Exactly, Mark, but do you need all your bells and whistles?
Why the extra stuff? Why all the extra sidewalk onto people's
You
yards?
easily get this done without spending $6.5 million. I mean, let's be real. I mean, that's insane. 6.5 million.
This is a rural community. We don't need to look like Maple Grove.
No.
Ridiculous.
When I pull into town, it says City of Foley, not Whiteside.
Yeah.
This is like you said, it's a rural town. We don't, it's not, people move here because it's cheap living and it's a good little town, but now you're just turning it into, like, fuck, my little paper Minneapolis. I mean, you getting insane.
okay. I mean, to your points there, if these additional width, additional sidewalk, those are definitely good points to bring up. Ultimately, what was going to be constructed is going to be determined by your city council and staff. If there's a lot of pushback for certain things, our proposal may change.
So are you
Yes.
suggesting that everybody here expressing their concerns come to the council meeting on Tuesday and express them?
You have your right to do that, yes.
You gotta be on the agenda, or you get your 30 seconds?
There's
It's a
Public
public
hearing.
hearing for that purpose on Tuesday. We
Yep.
have to have it as a requirement. It is a public hearing. It is on the schedule.
what was proposed in our feasibility study doesn't have to be what's constructed, for sure. There can be changes throughout the project, for sure. If the council decides to move forward with a narrower road or a wider road in certain spots, we can definitely do that. Take away sidewalk in some spots. If the council sees fit, we could do that. City staff will have some say in that. Yeah, so we're here tonight. We're here to kind of walk through the scope of the project, talk through assessments, help you understand kind of the process of what it is. And then if you have more questions and you want to bring them to council, you have every right to do that, and that's what we're here tonight to help you with. Yes, sir.
I have a quick question. Talking about the project, so narrowing the roads, I'm assuming that's gonna be making the boulevard wider, or are we actually moving the boulevard over the sidewalk?
Which road? 3rd Avenue? So the actual alignment in the road will be determined during design. Right now, what we're showing on here is just center of the right-of-way. But as far as where they'll be positioned in that right-of-way will be determined during design, and will take into account from city staff and going from there. As we talked about before, with Parent and Murphy having sidewalk on the one side, having the center of the road be the center of the right-of-way might not be the best fit for that corridor. But having, if you want to have, if you're talking 3rd Avenue, having it on both sides of the road, probably center of the right-of-way makes sense.
I'm forward about the boulevard. Am I a 10-foot boulevard to mow that I can't do anything with, or is it?
Oh, sorry. The boulevard is proposed to be 6 feet wide. So we'll have our footprint of our curb face of the roadway, 6-foot boulevard, 6-foot sidewalk, and beyond that point is whatever it's going to be to the right-of-way. Will be reconstructed with this project.
Road, more chance damage to my vehicles, but I'm gonna lose 6 feet, I can't park the driveway.
Sorry, what was that, sir?
A small road, so
Okay.
more chance damage to my vehicle, and since the boulevard is 6 feet, that's 6 feet less to park in my driveway. So I can't block the sidewalk with the car.
Didn't you say the boulevard was 10 feet right now? Is it?
Well, right now,
Sorry, what'd you say?
one lawnmower plate.
Oh, okay.
So if we're gonna narrow the road and extend the boulevard, that's 6 feet where that measurement is.
Mm-hmm.
That's land I can't do nothing with, it's city property, I gotta maintain it. Now, I can't park a car in my driveway in that area, because the sidewalk's still not moving.
Okay.
6 feet, that's 6 feet of driveway I cannot use.
Correct. Yeah, you can't park in front along the sidewalk. Correct. Yep.
So I'll park the car in the road when I'll get hit. When I was a nice wide driveway,
On
kids
third
are playing, have no problem.
on 3rd Avenue, that's proposed to be a 42-foot wide road. There's parking available for you now.
Now it's what, 50 for another?
50. Yes. Yep. Yep. Yeah. I mean, again, if to your point, if we want to widen the roads to 50, that's going to add more cost to the project, but it's not.
I think keep it the way it is.
Okay.
There's a lot of kids in that, a lot of small, young families, a lot of kids playing.
Mm-hmm.
They play in the street. Nice
Okay.
environment.
Okay.
Cars drive, and kids are jumping on a car. I can drive on another road and not worry about hitting a kid.
Mm-hmm.
With a door flying open. Or road wide enough.
Right. And it would be the same with the 42-foot wide roadway. As far as you have that same, right, it's minus 6 feet, but you still have the space for the activities you were talking about as far as parking, seeing kids, traveling lanes. But moving forward here, interest-free prepayments and partial payments may be made up to 30 days after the assessment hearing. And then any remaining balance, as Sarah was saying, gets added onto your property taxes. Breaking it down further, looking at each of these portions of the project, the summary of street costs here, we have roughly total cost for street would be $3.4 million. 1.6 million would be a city cost. 685,000 would be accessible costs, and then there is 1.1, 1.2 county costs for street. Storm sewer costs, again, they're 763,000 for the total cost for the storm sewer of the project. City cost would be 365,000. Accessible cost would be 156,000, and the county cost of that project, or that portion of the project, would be 241,000. Sanitary sewer total cost would be 897,000. There is no county estimated cost for that. It's a city item, and so 628,000 of that would be city costs, with 269,000 for accessible costs for the sanitary sewer. Last one here would be the water main cost. 1.2 million for a total project cost for water main, $888,000 would be the city cost, and $380,000 would be the estimated assessable cost for the water main. We briefly talked about this earlier, but there is a city policy where the city did, it was in 2016 we had our I&I study, is that correct? Roughly 2016. The city went and did their I&I study, which is influent and infiltration. Had their ordinance in place, that's when it was created. If and when a street is reconstructed, the properties with a sanitary sewer lateral that it has defects that were noted in that study, they need to have those issues or defects improved or replaced during that time. Now that can be within the project, or the homeowner has the right to hire their own contractor and get that done themselves. But for this assessment and in this feasibility study, those costs were assumed to be part of the project and then shown into your assessment roll. So that's that column we talked about, that private sanitary service costs. That's what that's relating to right there, is that the I&I ordinance for the City of Foley. The preliminary special assessment rates. So at the rates are determined by the total assessable cost of the project, which is 30%, divided by the assessable benefiting unit, which in this, for most of these, is front footage. So if you take those assessable costs for street, take 30% of that, divided by all the front footage, the accessible front footage of the project, you're looking at a rate of $175.28 per front foot. The alley, that rate would same calculation as far as how that's calculated, but that rate would be $16.31 per front foot. Sanitary sewer, same thing. Sanitary sewer costs divided by front footage, accessible front footage, and you get that for a $34.65 per front foot. The services are a per each, so each service is essentially paid equally on the public side, and that is for the 4-inch services for the residential services here. That is $1,269.24 per lot, and then the residential services would be $1,661.87 per lot. Essentially, the water main is calculated the same way as sanitary sewer. The water main per front footage is $55.68. 1-inch water service, $1,323.65 per lot. 1.5-inch water service, $2,062.27. 26 cents per lot. And the 6-inch water main would be the $3,485.34 per lot. Storm sewer is 25 cents per square foot. And then the private service that we were talking about earlier, the I&I replacement, that is per lot as well, estimated at $2,680. Driveway? Sorry, which rate you're talking about the driveways? The last one? The last one is sanitary service. So that's replacing the service from the right-of-way to as close to home as it can get to. That will meet the city ordinance.
Can you go back 2 slides and get this? So what happens if the homeowner's already got his water service replaced?
From where?
From the
meter?
Shut off to your meter, to my meter.
If it meets city standards as far as it's not galvanized, it's copper the whole way.
Yep.
Then I guess it wouldn't be. What do you say, Mark? Yeah, they wouldn't have to.
So then that $1,300 assessment will come off.
Correct. Yeah, if you don't get this, if you don't do this service, then yeah, if it's not a modern material, then you'll need to do it. Yeah, from the whole way from the meter to the main. Okay, yeah. If it is, then that's the case, and then that won't be replaced. Oh, what was your? You want me to go back a slide?
Basically back to R&I.
The I&I. Okay. Yep.
So look at the estimate. So you got the sanitary service, then you have the water and then sewer all individual adds up. So
which one do you want to look at here? Which screen? So this one or the previous one?
You can go back to your report.
This one here?
One more.
One more? Okay. All right, sorry, what's your question then?
So, back to R&I, so if the road gets redone, you have to replace your sewer, replace your water, right?
You have to, the I&I is solely replacing the sanitary sewer outside on the private side.
Water, okay, so
Yep.
we're good. But we're getting 100% cost already been assessed in there, so this is what I'm looking for. So is that cost to replace the driveway back to good condition, or is that cost just replace the pipes?
So I guess, are you saying, when you keep saying driveway, does that mean your service is under the driveway?
Yeah, build my driveway.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so those costs, the restoration costs would be included in your assessment. Does that make sense?
That's what I was looking at, so I've got
Yep.
3 spots that get charged. That's what I'm verifying, is it replace the driveway, or is it just the pipes?
So the driveway portion in the public right-of-way will be included in the street cost. Does that make sense?
I'm talking driveway goes all over my garage.
Yep. If your driveway is, if your services are in your driveway and they obviously need to replace your service and rip up the driveway, then that cost will be a part of your assessment, yes. Yep.
And then what's the difference then between the water main and the 1-inch water service?
So the water main is the assessment for the water main in the street, the 8-inch water main that's going underneath the whole street, and the service assessment is just for the service from the main to, you're talking water, right? So from the main to the curb stop near the right-of-way.
So that's not, so like when I built my house 7 years ago, I redid all my connections.
To the existing services?
So the water service is just up to,
You would have replaced the water service from your meter in your home to the curb
when
stop,
I built my house, I did all new connections to wherever.
to the
So that's what I'm
curb
wondering,
stop? Curb stop, yeah.
Is that included, the water, that 1-inch water service, is that?
So if the 1-inch water service would be from the main to the curb stop. So if that service, so you connected at the curb stop, which is near the right-of-way, correct?
Because they took out that part of my sidewalk,
Mhm.
so I'm assuming they went through, I guess I'm not sure offhand how far connected.
They would go
You-
from the boulevard to the middle of the road is what that service assessment is for.
Yeah,
So my 1-inch water service, so is that, would have been done at the time my house was built?
From your boulevard to the house that you put new in, so that part is done.
So, okay, so that needs to get taken off.
if the part you connected to is at the curb stops or near the right-of-way, from near the right-of-way to the meter in your home, that was replaced when you built the home.
I demoed the
Yep.
old one, dug everything up, I said I want all new connections to the city wherever, so I'm assuming it
Yep.
did, but I don't know.
Yeah, so if
I know Mark, I know you took pictures, you said you
To the
put them in
curb
my
stop they
file.
went.
Yeah. So it sounds like they will still need to replace from the main to the curb stop, which is what that assessment's for.
Which is what that is.
Yes, yep. And as I mentioned before, the city is looking into receiving grant dollars for replacing galvanized and lead water services. Those that do qualify for that, we're looking into the potential of not assessing for that service if we get the grant dollars for. That determination hasn't been made yet, but that's kind of what we're looking at right now. So, and here's an example of an assessment for a interior lot that is 80 foot, and it has an 80-foot frontage and a 120-foot depth, that has water and sanitary sewer. So there's a 4-inch service and 4-inch sanitary service and a 1-inch water service. This is essentially how your assessment rate was calced. So you have, for a street, you have your 80-foot front footage times that $175 that was shown, that was the rate, and that gives you your street assessment cost. The sanitary sewer, same thing. Your front footage times that rate for sanitary sewer, that gives you your assessment cost. You have the 4-inch service, that's a per lot. There's your $1,269 for that. The 80 front footage for the water main times that rate, and then the 1-inch water service rate as well, plus the storm sewer assessment, which is the drainage area of your property, if it all drains to the property. In this instance, it does. So 80 times 120 times that 25 cents per square foot gives you your your storm sewer assessment. In this example, this property would be receiving a preliminary assessment of $26,242.50. This is example 2 for a corner lot. This has a front footage of the short side is 60 feet and the long side is 120 feet. They have the same scenario where they have water and sewer services provided to them. The difference I'm trying to show here is that in the city policy, corner lots are treated a little differently than interior lots because they generally have more of a front footage. So there's a little benefit to that, or a little adjustment change in how that street cost is calculated, whereas it is the full short side and then half the long side is how that is calculated there for those corner lots times the rate. The sanitary sewer and water main are also a little different, where they are only the short side, not short plus the long. But running through that, everything else is calculated the same, and then this resident would, or this property would be receiving a $30,846 assessment. Bringing it all full circle here for our financial summary here. The estimated city cost for this project is $3.5 million. The estimated assessment cost to the residents is $1.6 million. Estimated county cost is $1.4 million, bringing the total to that $16.5. Again, showing you the preliminary schedule for this project. Tonight's neighborhood informational meeting. Next Tuesday is the improvement hearing, where the city can decide to either move forward with ordering the improvements, which is essentially the design and topo of the project, and then we are proposing to have the plans to the city in January of 2025, bidding the project in February of 2025, and then bring it to the council for their decision on either awarding or not awarding the project in March of 2025. Construction in the summer 2025, which would then be, more than likely, will be all of the construction, all of the summer season, and then the final lift of bituminous will be the following year in the summer of 2026. And then the assessment hearing, which is when everything will be determined as far as the term length, interest rate, and then also you'll be given your final assessment amount at that time too, at that assessment hearing in either October or November of 2025. That is all I have for tonight. My contact information is there if you have any questions for me. We are slated to be here until 7 o'clock, so if you want to talk to me one-on-one or in groups, that's fine.
Just quickly, can I just go over, just in case anybody does want to leave, what I have kind of on the list of things that were brought up. We talked about sidewalk replacement, specifically Murphy, some of those side streets. We talked about width of Murphy, some of those side streets, what size, what that looks like. We talked about a couple adjustments on an individual property depending on some work that's been done. What we can do to bring the price down, is there extra things that are in there that could be reevaluated? We talked about what the assessment rate is, as far as the 30%, if there's any adjustment that could be considered on that. And then the alley, we talked about why the alley wasn't done from Murphy to Highway 23. So is there any other item that I missed that sounded right?
Sidewalks on Parent.
Okay.
Parent Murphy.
Sidewalks on Parent
Side
and Murphy?
streets.
And I just have a question, Sarah. Just the block I live on here, just that 3rd Avenue, is the sidewalk gonna be done, or just the roadway, or is the sidewalk gonna be done on just that one block right here?
That's full road with sidewalks, both sides here, right over here.
Where's she asking?
Just right on I'm on the corner of 3rd and John, so it's just that one block on this side of 23.
Yep. Yeah, so both sides sidewalk will be
It'll be done.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Do the trees come down in the boulevards? Are there any trees?
More than likely, depending on road grades, where our sidewalks are going to be placed, and where your services are located.
You're talking all the boulevards, or? Well, mine's just that one single.
In general, all of them. Like so, like on our.
Well, you know that, Dan, you don't need that stuff.
Yes, go ahead.
So you're saying all the boulevards will be,
You don't need to replace all the sidewalks either. Some of them are just.
All the trees will likely, that decision hasn't been made yet, but likely they will be removed. What we did on our 2018 project was, I believe it was a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 ratio where we replaced those trees that we took down. So if you look on 3rd Avenue and 4th Avenue over on the south side here, all those smaller, the trees that were planted there, I think that was at a 2-to-1 ratio of, if we took down 2 trees, we planted 1.
so then our electricity bill is also gonna go up because we won't have any shade. The air quality is gonna be shit. The concrete that we're gonna replace is gonna be hot.
Can you look at just
Ecologically,
doing
it's
just
not
the
smart.
sidewalks, so,
More
I mean,
concrete
cause like the
and
sidewalk
concrete.
over here
No,
should
we
be
don't want it.
redone, but I don't see that you need to redo the whole boulevard. On actually both sides of that.
That would
block.
be determined by the street grades that we would be proposing with the project, and like I said, end your service locations, whether or not those trees will need to be removed. And some trees are to the point where they are either gonna be dying in a few years or that they're causing issues to the existing sidewalk. We don't wanna have that happen in the future for our proposed sidewalk, so. There's different factors that go into it. There may be trees that stay, may not be. That will be determined during our design.
Yeah, but you live on Broadway, and you got some nice trees.
Her house cooler.
And it brings up your, property tax, or property value. It's like 3,000 a tree.
Yeah, like I said, they'll be replacing, in the past, we have replaced those at a 2-to-1 ratio as far as removing 2.
What kind of trees are gonna use to replant that?
Oh gosh, I can't remember what we used on the 18 project.
Silver maples.
I don't wanna say yes or no to the silver maples, especially after that, description of them, but, I'm not sure, to be honest. I can't remember what we put on 18. Mark, do you remember what those 3, I think there's 3 different kinds I think we proposed and installed throughout the corridor, but
Yeah, one was a linden, one was a linden. Maple.
okay.
Something we look at. Jared, be clear,
Yes.
the removal of trees isn't dependent solely on sidewalks, it's dependent on where the pipes and.
Correct, yeah.
And water has to go in order to replace.
Yeah, so having to redo the boulevard may be impacted by our street grades. We're trying to also improve drainage in the area, so we might have high points in the road in different spots and low points depending on where things are, need to flow through, right? So that may impact how that boulevard looks, and you want to have a flatter boulevard. You don't want to have a 4-to-1 boulevard. You want to have something flat that's mobile and nice. So that may impact the trees. The location of your sanitary and water services may impact or may be acted by those trees.
Before that, you're not doing the sanitary on that block right over here.
On that block? Correct, yeah.
So if you're just doing just water.
Yep.
And you're just doing that one block.
Mhm.
I guess I don't see why you have to do all full boulevards on both sides. And, the sidewalk on my side should be done, redone.
Mhm.
And probably this side, but I don't see why you have to rip up the whole boulevards.
And that will be determined during design. This is a preliminary, where we're at right now. We haven't even done topo of the area, so.
And is there like statute or something that, like when he was talking about the boulevards, like why is it doubling in size? Is there some kind of statute that you go off of that decides like that, and is it statute that pertains to a small community?
Statute, no. It's more of a design standard. When you have a 6-inch curb, and you have all your driveways, if you're gonna have a boulevard, you don't wanna have a 3-foot boulevard and try to make up that 6 inches, because your driveways are gonna be super steep. All your vehicles will be bottoming out as you go through there. You wanna have that larger, I believe it's when you have 6 inches, I think it's a 6-foot boulevard, is what the state uses as their kind of design standard for that. I think it's 4 feet for a 4-inch curb. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Well, how do you do it when you don't have a boulevard? There's curb and gutter with no boulevard. I've seen that in the world, so
Right.
how do they do it?
Well, when you just don't have a boulevard, you don't have a sidewalk then if there's no boulevard, right? You mean as far as you're having a sidewalk behind the curb? Is what you're referring to then?
Like there's no boulevard, like there are streets, like there's.
That have sidewalk right behind the curb?
Street, there's a sidewalk, how do they do it?
how do they do that? So on that one, they have a wider transition, as far as the flares of your driveways, because they need to have meet ADA standards then for that sidewalk behind the curb. So the curb needs to match also ADA standards. So you have a longer transition, and then the sidewalk comes down, and essentially your driveway, the sidewalk in your driveway is flat, and so you would have, in those cases, potentially they have water coming into those areas, sitting there, and then you come up with your driveway behind the sidewalk to tie in. Now, does that make sense?
Main Street?
I'm trying to think of picture of Maine right now as far as Maine has Grand. Okay, so off of like Gopher, kind of right there, right? Yeah. That is behind the south side of the curb, right? I'm pretty sure it's on the south side.
It's the yards, the curb, and then the road.
Yep. So those ones have that longer transition, so the sidewalk can still meet ADA standards, come down, and then have their 1.5% cross slope of the sidewalk through the driveway, and that kind of comes up, or goes down.
That might be old enough, it's not getting the 1%.
Okay, so it might not.
They're more abrupt there.
Okay, so those locations don't meet ADA standards for crosswalks then, or for sidewalks. Sorry. Yes.
As I'm hearing a lot about sidewalks, your best estimate, what percentage of the project cost is sidewalks? Just ballpark. I'm looking at this project, I'm assuming that the tearing up the road, putting in new sewer and water and the main, I would imagine that's gonna be a bulk of the cost. The sidewalks, I'm just curious, what is that actually adding to cost? Give us a ballpark percentage, just so we can get an idea.
Total sidewalk cost on this project, this is just for concrete. It's just putting it in, this is not anything else, it's just putting in. We have city cost of $120,000 for the 4-inch and $26,000 for the 6-inch, which is your ped ramps.
And that's all concrete?
That's the sidewalks, not all concrete. Only concrete, so they're not factoring any boulevard costs or restoration outside to put it in. That's just solely the concrete, the material cost, or the bid item itself.
So that would be like 120
plus, so about 150.
out of a $5 million or $6.5 million project.
Yes. Yep. Correct. That's only on the city side of things. The 4th Avenue concrete sidewalk costs are included in the county side.
The
So,
county's paying for that.
correct. Yes.
So the 4th Avenue sidewalks are being paid for by the county?
That is the assumption in this feasibility study. Yes, the city and the county haven't come to their agreement yet. That happens during design, but that's based off of how things have been in the past. That's how we're assuming we're going to go with this one too. Correct. Any other questions as a group?
According to the slides, is Broadway currently 50 feet, going down to 42 feet?
The exact width currently is roughly 50 feet, but yes, it's proposed to be at 42 feet wide, yes. Not including the areas where you have the diagonal parking, that they're going to be wider there to account for the parking, but, so like at the intersection of Murphy there, that'd be a 42-foot wide Broadway Avenue road corridor. Again, that's proposed in our feasibility study. That's what's been in the CIP since 2011. If you have certain thoughts on those, definitely bring them on the 4th, and we can make those take all those considerations into the count. Yep.
Just one thing, if you are not able to make the June 4th hearing, you can submit written comments. You can send them in, drop them off, mail them, whatever, if you want those officially registered into the record. So that's just something to keep in mind, or talk to your neighbor, wants to submit something, you always can do that.
All right, well, I will leave this slide up. There are roll plots, 3 different roll plots throughout the area here to kind of get a better look of what is going on in that area. And I will be, it is 6:15. We are planning to stick around until roughly 7 o'clock. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
Cookies, juice, please, grab something.
Why are you turning this thing off?